Golden stars. I
Okay.
just love his name. Good afternoon to all our viewers, and thank you, God, we praise you for another day. It's been an awesome and amazing day. Thank you to all our viewers all over the world, and of course at home. You've been an amazing, and we truly appreciate you because you are sharing our videos, you are clicking likes, and we do. This topic is about, the Father Talk Show, it is about empowering our single fathers out there and men. And I know when I was saying to my guest here, my co-host, and also our special speaker, I said, guys, you are kings, because you are kings. And we want to celebrate you because you are doing such an amazing work. I know sometimes the media kind of focus on the fathers who do not want to be in their children's life. But there are amazing, awesome fathers out there who are fighting, to be in their children's life, to co-parenting, to be a full single father is just absolutely awesome. And the whole program is to salute you, single father, to say you are doing an awesome and amazing work. So I've got amazing speakers today. Yes, 2 speakers. My co-host is going to be talking. He didn't know that I was going to push him out and say, you are speaking today, because he's got a fantastic message to share with us as well. And of course, I've got an amazing speaker here as well. Lushen, he's going to tell us a lot about himself, what he does. He's an amazing guy. So I'm just going to bring in my co-host, the king, Daniel. I shall we continue.
Yeah, it's been good. Yeah, so far it's been good. Very relaxing. Not too much stress, which is good, and a lot of meditation, which always helps. So yeah, and I loved what you were saying about the media is always bringing the negative side of things, whereas in my experience, most fathers, want to really connect with their children. They really want to connect. They don't want to be distant from their children, but it seems like the way the media are portraying it is the exact opposite, which is completely unrealistic. So, and we've got Lushen here. Lushen, say hello.
Hello.
Yeah. So I'm going to introduce Lushen, and Lushen's going to go and speak about his expert topic. So Lushen, it's Lushen Sutherland, I'm correct?
Great, yeah.
Yeah. And Lushen has 15 years experience as a graphic designer and is also a qualified lecturer in graphic design. He's really passionate about working with young people, inspiring them, empowering them to become this amazing version of themselves. He runs, I think one of his goals is to run a workshop for young people to teach them about graphic design, interior design, and fashion as well. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
Yeah. Very profound thinker, big thirst for knowledge as well, probably self-development, personal development, non-fictional literature, and his greatest passion is to spend time with Lord Jesus Christ, the Savior. And he's going to tell us all about his experience, his journey, and also his topic is going to be the reversal of the natural identity of a mother and father. I needed to remember that. But yeah, so Lushen, you're going to tell us all about that. I'm excited to hear what you have to say, and yeah, really looking forward to it.
Okay,
Definitely. I'm definitely looking forward to kind of hear, because when I read the topic, I'm like, wow, because normally we hear about the single mother playing 2 roles, with the mother and the father and that kind of, so it would be really lovely to hear your point of view, a father playing the mother role as well. How does that affect and impact? But I just want to, I love kind of doing a quick research and everything. There was a research that come out, and it's actually written by a woman. If it was a man that wrote it, I would have like, okay, you're being biased. But this is actually written by a woman. And what she actually says is that single fathers, children that grow up in a single father household, they do a lot more better than children that are brought up by a single mother. In fact, she went on saying that even those who are married, bringing up their children. Now, what is your thought? And this is actually written by a woman. So what's your thoughts about that, guys, before we go into our talk? I just want to feel your thought onto that. Do you want to go, our guest, Lushen? What do you think about that?
Is that in regards to the kids do better when they're brought up by the man?
Yes, as a single father, yes.
Is that better in education or how so?
Let me tell you exactly what it was. Let me see. They're better more in education, more discipline. There's strong barriers put in place, and they're a lot more confident in themselves. You know, they're a lot more confident in themselves, and they do really, really well, you know, overall in the outcomes. And what was the other one? They are more full of life. And I'm kind of thinking of the word to use here. They will not delete their life. There are more single children that have been brought up by single parent that kind of deletes their lives. So you understand what I'm saying? Yes, that they will delete their lives and they will go into drugs and everything. And this is what the article was saying. But you'll find that a lot of single children that brought up from a single father's household are a lot more stable. So what's your take into that?
Really powerful, actually, because I haven't actually heard that before. I've heard what you said in regards to the two when a family is together, husband and wife, but I haven't heard this side of the spectrum. And as you were speaking about, I just noted some things down, and it actually did make sense. And the first thing which came to me when you said discipline, the kids do well in discipline. Now, there's something which I've noticed, even with my own children, that, and this is no disrespect in any shape or form to their mother, she's a good mum, but let's face it, there's a reason why there is a mum and a dad, because we both have strengths and weaknesses. And as mums and dads, when we come together with our children, there's certain things that the mum can't do, which the dad can, and vice versa. And so what I've noticed, especially with my son, he used to act up a lot with his mum. And to the point where she used to ring me up and ask, okay, well, he's carrying on like this way and this way. And I was shocked at the way that he was carrying on, because he doesn't carry on like that with me in any shape or form. So I said, you're going to have to discipline him better. And obviously, I didn't want to make it seem as though she's not doing better. And the thing is, she's doing the best of what she knows. But because her being a woman, being his mother, I think there's a different type of connection that you have to your child, if that makes sense. Because women are obviously, they are more emotional, more caring, more nurturing. And so where I would discipline my child, what people would say in a harsh way in comparison to how his mum was, it was effective, number one, because he's a male, he's a man, and I'm not so connected as strongly, shall I say, I want to use empathy. It's not empathy, with emotions. You know, I can kind of separate myself, and so when I need to come down strong on him to discipline him, I will do so and not feel bad. But I can see that she would feel bad. Therefore, it would stop her from disciplining him in the way that is needed, which may seem to her to be extreme, but it's not. And so even then, just because of that emotional connection, there's become a negative or disadvantage in disciplining him. And so there's certain things that he would get away with and speak to her in certain ways which he could never do with me in any shape or form. And so therefore, straight away, you can see how discipline is being instilled in him, and in a place which is right for him, you know. And am I making sense?
You do.
Yeah.
You do indeed. Yes,
You know,
you are.
Yeah, you see, and there was one thing I said, listen, you will need to have to do this and do that. And she was like, I'm not doing that. And I was like, well, you have to, because by the time he's 10, 11, 12, he's got a very strong will. I said, you're in trouble. I said, he'll be telling you what to do, and he'll be doing what he wants to do. And so after a little while, I think she realized, okay, I'm going to have to go down this road with him. But I can see that if we were together, then obviously we can bounce off of each other in that area. Where she cannot do that, I can. You know, I can fill in the space there. So it makes sense in that aspect, is that seeing in what was said, that the children have more discipline with their fathers, because we're living in a culture as well where you see the children are with their mothers when they come from a single background. And so the children are constantly with their mothers. And let's face it, we're living in a time when children are unruly. Even just the other day, I was just at work and I was passed by the shop. I had to pick up some bits and put on a lorry, and some guy was talking about, he put up some posters somewhere, and some kid was tearing things down, the posters, these cancer posters. And I overheard him saying, and he was a good, probably 10, 15 years older than me. So he's about in his mid-50s, 60 years of age. And he was saying that basically he couldn't get over how this kid was tearing down his posters. He's 14 years of age and felt no way about it. He said back when he was young, he goes, you get a clip around the ear, you know? Yeah. And so you can see, I do believe that where there has been that split, and, you know, divorce rates are going through the roof, and children spend more time with their mums and their fathers. And it's not the mother's fault, don't get me wrong, in any shape or form. I'm pretty sure that the mothers are doing the best of what they can. I know they're doing the best of what they can to bring up their children, but there's a disciplinary which can, I believe, to a certain degree, can really only be instilled by a father. You know? And then you've got the case of man, and then you've got a different set of kettle of fish where you've got daughter and son. But now you have to deal with the daughter totally different to how you deal with the son. And that's where the mother comes in, you know. And so, yeah, it's powerful to hear that, because you don't hear it in what you said. And what you said, it opens up a door now to show why things are how they are within the youth.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you totally in terms of the discipline, and, you know, with the single mother, where the mother is on her own bringing up a boy specifically, because that is a really good place that you've just touched as well. Because I'm a single mother with 2 boys, so I can hear where you're coming from, but mine, they couldn't mess about with me. That's one thing. Daniel, what do you think about the statement, you know, that obviously children that are brought up with their dads, you know, they do far more better than children that are brought up from a single mother?
I mean, that was very surprising for me as well. I was like, oh, really? Okay, interesting, because it's just so conditioned that women are naturally better at parenting. And I'm you know, but you know, when I come back to some of my friends and how they as men, how they parent, and how their partners parent, I can see why that is the case. You know, again, it's what Lushen said about the discipline as well. And I think often also that as parents, depending on, you know, where you're at on your journey, often I've found that mothers sometimes want love from their children, yeah, And when you want love from someone, yeah, then they can control you. Yeah, you're more easily controlled by that person. When you're very sure of yourself, deep within, and you understand yourself, and you realize love comes from within, you're not seeking that love from your child, because it shouldn't be a parent's job to seek love from their child. It should be a parent's job to give love. Yeah. And I feel sometimes, and what I've seen often is, and this isn't everyone, yeah, sometimes women want love from their child, and when they don't get it, there's something within them that can't parent from strength. Yeah, and that's certainly not the case, but I have seen it quite often. You know, the same applies, but you know, I'm surprised by that. But yeah, the discipline aspect, that wanting love aspect, and ultimately, you know, a lot of male fathers they're quite relaxed. You know, they parent with discipline, but they're still quite this. They make things fun and joyful, and you know, they don't seem like they come from that stressful place as much as women sometimes. Yeah. And again, as much as that's often to do with, you know, the woman is experiencing strong emotions. And this isn't everyone, you can't generalize with this, but you know, often, you know, I remember one time, you know, my ex said to me, "You've got a really good job in parenting, you just have lots of fun with, you know, your daughter." You know, I view it slightly different. You know, there is a serious side to it, and you know, a developing of discipline. But for me, it's all about inner discipline, and making sure that the child understands what real inner discipline is. So yeah, that's my take on things.
That is absolutely fantastic, because when I actually heard that and I read that, I'm like, wow, let me just ask my guests there and obviously see what they're taking it. And it's quite surprising that you both feel like, wow, I didn't know this, you know. And I think this is what the whole thing about the Father Talk Show is, to bring that information out there and make these men who are doing amazing work out there to be appreciated. You know, to be appreciated. Thank you so much. And now, Lushen, our guest, come on, tell us about your journey of you becoming co-parenting. I mean, I love the opening, the discipline inside of your son. And also, if you could touch a little bit, both of you kind of got girls as well. Yeah, girl children. And what's the difference on that discipline as a father as well? But tell us, Lushen, what is your journey? What was your journey to become in a co-parenting father?
Okay, how I got into where I am at the moment, you mean?
Yeah, where are you right now, and then go back and come back?
So unfortunately, myself and the children's mum is kind of split up like 5 years ago. So my son's 6, so I know he's around about a year's age, and that's when we had split up. It was just, it came to a bit of a breaking point with myself. I have to pick my words carefully here, because nobody's perfect, as we know. There's no such thing as a perfect person. It takes two. But there was a case where, you know, and I'm one of those as well, which I was dead against splitting. I come from a broken family myself, and I see the damage it does from a Caribbean background. And you know, there's a stereotype which is actually true of parents that are not around, you know what I mean? But they call it absentee fathers, you know, and I see the damage of what it does, and it's not a part of me. But it got to a point where I couldn't live with the situation that I was in. There was a lot of it was maybe I've been dominated too much. I'm very, very patient. I've been dominated, and so I don't want to go too much into it, but the bottom line, so it came to a point where I had to leave because it was a case of mental health and everything else, and my identity is a lot of stuff going on, and so I said, we've got to separate. And You know, it was, to this day, I'm gutted about it. Yeah.
Easy for you to co-parenting? You know, how did they? Was there a lot of conversations and taking place? Was it
Was
easy
it
for you to go
co-parenting?
co-parenting?
Was it easy, do you mean, at the start?
Yeah, at the start,
I think at the start, there's a lot of animosity and anger and confusion and everything else. And so at the beginning, it was difficult because you're dealing with the pain. You're dealing with the pain and you're feeling sorry for yourself and you're trying to make sense of what's gone on and you really want to rekindle. Then your pride comes in and all that stuff. And, and I think it was just a case of, by the grace of God, their mum is reasonable in regards to how we could get on with the children, where I have to say I was really blessed because you do not see that. You do not see that a lot. In my experience with people that I've known, people are going to court, all manners of stuff, and having World War III just to see their children, just for simple little things. And so I was really blessed in that way. And then as time went on, it panned out and it works. It works out okay. I don't have any issue with the fire. We've arguing over finances, arguing over this, and all the little things that you may hear about, which goes hand in hand with co-parenting. So in that aspect, I was really, really, really grateful, really, really blessed in that area. It wasn't too difficult. It was just basically just there was a little bit of toing and throwing, people trying to trying to wear the trousers or hold authority, hold control. That's basically as tough as it got. And that's basically it, really. It's very hard for me to answer the question because it's actually so complex.
Yeah.
It's so complex, but as in general, yeah, that's the best I can say in regards to what you've asked me.
So you kind of got a really good relationship in co-parenting. And obviously she was really, really, by the sound of things, she was really flexible and made it easy for you. Yeah,
she was. I did have to put my foot down in certain areas. I did have to put my foot down, which, I'll be fair, it was a learning curve for myself because it caught me out of my comfort zone, because I did suffer with assertiveness. And I managed to, it brought out a bit of assertiveness in me, And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I'm absolutely perfect. Obviously, I'm not. And so, obviously, I had my ups and downs. And obviously, I wasn't as what do you call it? As what's the word? It's a word when you're just amicable. That's it, amicable as I could have been. But overall, yeah, that was the situation there.
Cool. And so tell us a little bit about your subject that you want to speak about, the reversing the natural identity of a mother and father. What do you actually mean by that? Yeah.
Okay, so something which I've noticed from way back, and as time's gone by, actually, I'm seeing it even more, and even now in the not so much in the mainstream, but now when you see independent interviews and articles, you're starting to hear now how what I was experiencing and what I've seen is actually the case. You wouldn't hear it in mainstream, put it that way. And so my point is that, and it's going to sound, I know in this day and age we have to be so careful in what we say, because of emotions and certain rhetoric. But the point is, I don't want anybody to think that I'm being misogynistic?
Yeah.
A misogynist.
Yeah.
Because it's so difficult, because now it's really where being a man is really basically is frowned upon. And anything that you say which is negative, it's not even negative, something could just be the truth in regards to women, is basically all of a sudden you hate women. And that's not the case at all.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to speak it for how it is. And I don't mean to offend anybody. If you are offended, I apologize. But the first thing I think, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, we want you to say it as it is. We want you to express your truth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So as it started off, I see as growing up and stuff, you start to see a lot of my friends, obviously male friends that had families or had children, whether it was in wedlock or out of wedlock, majority out of wedlock due to the how we live and the culture of how we live, that they would end up not seeing their children. And it never made sense to me because these men, ultimately, it's always the good men. And trust me, I come from a background where I know a lot of horrible people and I know a lot of good people. And it seemed like the good men were trod on them. And they had to beg to see their children if they could even see their children. And they really hadn't done anything wrong. Maybe the relationship just went sour. And I'll be straight with this because the woman just wanted to wear the trousers, you know. And I noticed what it was is that I think you've got what you would call the alpha male, which is kind of the stereotypical male, which is goes out partying, drinking, is misogynistic, doesn't care about women so much, it's all about himself, have kids all over the place, goes out fighting and blah 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 blah. I noticed that those type of men, obviously, it's always going to be okay for them because that's just a lifestyle which is within them. And so, but you've got the other side of things where you have gentle men, decent men. And I believe what happened is that where you have the feminism movement. Now, I understand that the feminism movement from way back I understand it. I totally get it. It was women just wanted a say in life, just to be treated better. I totally get that, totally understand that. And it's right. Now, we've got to a point now where it's been fed through the media, and really over the last, I would say, 30 years, that especially when you go back to the mid-90s and so on, and you had like girl power, and then you had certain like Spice Girls and all these manufactured musicians and so on and so on, which was really trying to force this women are independent, women are as men, I don't need no man, blah 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 blah, which is totally against human nature. It's as simple as that. And so it became to a point where this feminism movement kind of started to mutate, and it became, okay, well, women are better than men, we don't need you, you know, and I can do what I want. So I can live, if a man can do it, so can I. So from there onwards, what's happened is that the identity of a woman was being mutated to become like a man. And so, and you've got to bear in mind as well that I remember one time I was in a pub somewhere, and some guy said to some woman, to a load of women, all that drinking and boozing, and he said, listen, women, we don't, no man really wants to be with a woman who can party as much as you, swear as much as you, sleep around as much as you, fart as much as you. You know, you're no longer a woman, you're now a man. You're not attractive. And he was absolutely spot on. I'll never forget when he said that, and he was spot on. And so I think you can see where I'm going with this. And so now there was a time, I believe now, where it became not wanting to be at the same level as men, but now it's almost like we are men, and now I'm going to destroy men. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I completely 100% agree with you that it feels like the narrative is to put men down, to undermine masculinity, to say all masculinity is toxic. It's toxic masculinity, and that's told when you're being assertive, when you feel, it's just, I totally agree with you on that point. And it comes to a point where it feels to me sometimes that many women are delusional in that even basic things such as strength, physical strength, they're like, women are stronger than men, which is
it's delusional.
Yeah, and I'm not saying, again, I'm not saying this is all women. I'm just saying that I have come across this where women actually think they're stronger than their male counterparts physically, which is mind-blowing when you think about it. Deep conditioning.
Yeah.
So in that case, sorry guys. So in that case, how does that make you feel as men when these women are coming across? I mean, what you were just illustrating, you know, now the women, they drink just like the men, they party like just as the men they do, they feel they're harder and they fart just like the men. I mean, and also to come along to so like saying, well, actually, we're stronger than you physically as well. How do you, as guys out here, how does that make you feel? That makes sense. Any one of you guys can answer. Lushen, you are a guest. So understand, now you gain all this information, all these things coming together. How does that make you feel as a man when you're having all this thrown at you and also trying to sort your life at the same time?
Well, it becomes a war. It becomes a war, doesn't it? It's not so much of an issue, I don't think, when you're out, if you're single looking for somebody. But I think once you start getting into a relationship and you have, especially in the West, you have basically, and you end up with a woman that has that mindset that has been conditioned, now you're in trouble. You know, you're in trouble because now you haven't come together. What I see is in a relationship, you're no longer forced to conquer the world. It's now you're conquering each other because the woman now thinks that she's better than you, in a sense, or she can do just as much as you, or wants to dominate you. And so she's trying to dominate you in the home, and it's not natural. And the man wants to have his authority. He's a man, you know, and so now he's trying to get his authority back. Okay, so there'll be issues about, okay, say if the lady wants to do what she wants to do, and you say, well, I don't want you doing that. She's like, well, you can't tell me what to do. You can't control me. I'm an independent woman. So, well, if you're independent, then, well, you can't be with me. Then you need to be on your own. So obviously you can see that now there's a clash inside the home. You're both at each other's throats. You catch a drift. And so, and I believe there becomes a point as well where it's going to go one way or the other. The man's going to end up being submissive, which basically is not a male trait, and especially not in marriage. You know, and this is one of those things where you can't say to women nowadays that you have to be submissive. Well, that is the case. A man likes a submissive woman. That's not saying that you want someone who you can control and dominate like a caveman. It's someone who's submissive, and a man has to get up and war every day just to put the food on the table. He doesn't want to come in and start warring and dominating and having to dominate with and fight against his partner. You want someone who's submissive there, who can speak together, understand, and you catch where I'm coming from. And so, on the flip side, there's the authority. The woman no longer wants an authoritative man. She sees it as a threat. And so there you have a clash. It's already a recipe for disaster. So the man's going to end up either walking away, or he's going to end up actually staying in a relationship, and actually he's going to lose his identity, lose his self-worth. And there's so much which comes from that, so much negativity which comes from that.
So, Lushen, I have a question for you. So what do you say to the argument that maybe a lot of women will come up with, is that, we have to be that way because men nowadays are more effeminate, they're more, feminine, they're not stepping up into their role as masculine providers. What would you say that to that?
It's a very powerful question. That it's the kind of, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, because if you step into that authoritative role, that the woman is saying, okay, you need to stand as a man and be more of a man. As soon as you do that, you're told that you're misogynistic, you're controlling, you're a caveman, you're this, you're that. So then on the flip side, if you do become feminized, which is basically what the media in its sense has been trying to do for the past 20 years. So you can see that men putting on makeup, men getting in touch with their emotions, just the cosmetics and everything else, which has really been, even with boy bands, with boy bands, and you've got the men following boy bands with their hair flicked over and all this and that. It's like an agenda to really feminize men. And so in that aspect, it's a difficult one because, as I said, once you become feminine, which is exactly what the what the culture says you should be. And then when women see you like that, then you're no longer attracted to them. They tell you, well, you need to man up. You man up, then you're told, well, you're misogynistic, you're trying to control me. So therefore, you can see why, on a really dark side, where the mental health goes through the roof. Suicide goes through the roof with men, which is, we're at a crisis where men's suicide rates with men is the highest it has ever been. And they're just lost, they have no identity. And you see, and this is really extreme. This is really extreme, but I remember from ages ago, I used to read in the paper, a man's come along and he's shot his wife, shot the kids, and shot himself. He's like, my God, what has caused a man to kill his whole family? And then I knew, there's been a fight in the home. There's been a fight for who wears the children, who runs the household. And the man has got to his tether. And men are the worst extreme scenario. A man will turn around and just remove his whole family. In the best case, a man will walk away completely and have nothing to do with his kids because he can't. It's a battle that he can't win. So men are more likely just to walk away from it all. But if you've got a man that's really been hurt and really wants to grab back his authority, and he knows he cannot get that authority, especially the way the system is set up as well, is geared to actually to help women. There's no help for men. Yeah, and so what a man will do, and it is very animalistic, but you see that in the animal world as well. I remember watching wildlife programs where the lion will come along and kill all the children, all the kids, and you think, my God, it's killed all the cubs. And I think the reason why is because another lion had come into the territory. But my point is that that other lion has lost his authority, he's lost his manliness. So he's gone on and killed all the kids and basically run off the lioness. And in the worst case scenario, the man has got up and just killed everybody in the family and then turned the gun on himself.
Yeah, I mean, I think men have this inherent sort of drive, natural instinct for authority, for, you know, stepping up, for having purpose in their life. And when it feels like that's taken away, then, you know, what do we do? You know, what does a man do? What purpose is a man if to be a provider, if that's taken away from him? It's like, it's really challenging. And like, you know, like you said, the male suicide rates are off the roof, and I think they're about 3.5 times more than women.
Yeah.
But it's not really talked about in the way that it should be. And, you know, there are men talking about it, but, you know, it's never really portrayed by the mainstream.
No, I think the point you made was that's really at the crux of it, is the fact that men themselves, they want authority, and it's not. And once again, if you say this out to the world, they'll be like, "Oh, you just want to control women." No, that's not the case. As you said, it's hard built, it's natural. Even if you want to go down to wildlife, to nature, the male species is the leader. That's how it works. And so the male wants to provide for his child, for his family. He wants to be the head. He wants to make the decisions. Not that he's going to overrule his wife. You know, he's going to be able to speak and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's just a wife's idea is the right idea, then cool. But overall, he has the final say, you know. And so what you said there is absolutely that. Is we're wired to be leaders. That's what that is. And so once that's taken away from a man, what is it? What is it? Especially in your own family. When you love your family, you just want the best for your family.
It's a good point that you just raised there, because I was kind of reading and watching this video. It's about this married couple. And one of the things is that I'm just going to bring back submission. All right. They were talking about submission at home. And one of the topic again you brought in as well about the man being the provider. But one of the things that was kind of intriguing to me Yes, the woman said, yes, I'm submissive to my husband, but also he's kind of submissive to me. And I was trying to figure out, how does that work? What do you think about that? That's one of the questions. And another thing as well, but during the conversation, as much as he was saying that, the man says, as much as we're doing all this work together and everything, he said, we talk, we discuss things that needs to be discussed, but at the end of the day, I make the final decisions. So what do you think about that? The woman feel that the man, although she was submissive to him, again, him to be submissive to her. So what do you think about that, guys? I mean, this is very powerful because it's very much what we're talking about. Is that's almost taking the power off. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I like that aspect where the woman is submissive, but the man is also submissive, but in a way to her intelligence, her perspective on life, because obviously women have a very powerful perspective of life, of relationships, of parenting, and sometimes a man has to really listen to that, really listen deep down, and in that way he's submissive to that kind of perspective, that kind of approach, and I think that's very powerful. But at the end of the day, I think she comes in with her understanding, but then being the natural leader, he has to decide which direction to go. Yeah, and they do it together, but ultimately someone has to make the choice in the end. And from my perspective is, as a man, he needs to take that role and step up into that place without having the battle with his partner, because the last thing men want to do is battle with women. We don't want to battle with women. Yeah, no, we don't want that. But the way that things are going, it feels like there's a constant conflict, that we're forced into a battle that we don't want. I'd rather work in partnership 100% all the time. I'd rather work in partnership. It's a lot more effortless.
What do you think? What do you think, Lushen? About what they said in terms of he submission to her, and also vice versa. But at the end of the day, what I love saying, and which you just mentioned, Daniel, somebody else had to take a decision, the last decision. But the great thing about it was that he said at the end, but I make the final decision. So, what's your take into that?
I think he's absolutely nailed it, and in regards to what Daniel was saying, and I think overall, there's nothing wrong at all for a man to submit to his wife, and I think men would. I know me personally, it's one of the things I would submit to my wife, but as he said, it comes with the fact of respecting me as a man, and I think that submission really, for a man to submit to his wife, I would see more as loving your wife, loving your partner. Does that make sense? And I'm going to go back to what is biblical, and in the teachings of Christ, and it is women submit to your husbands, and men love your wives. And that love is an unconditional love, because God knows that really what's hardwired in women is women want to be nurtured, they want to be loved. You see that all the time from what we hear from women, where they said from when they were young. I was shocked to hear that women from the age of like 8-7 years of age, they was looking for their Prince Charming. They've got it all in their head what they was looking for. It's like, from the age of 6, 7, and 8. So you go, so they just want to be loved. And men as a whole, they would want somebody, a partner who's submissive. So in regards to your question, or the point you made that the woman wanting her husband to be submissive, yeah, I get that, but I see that more as a case, that submission that will come from a man, it would be more of a unconditional, constant love, but at the end of the day, the man will have the final say if needs be. Does that make sense?
It does indeed. It does. I know it's a powerful kind of topic. Now, you both got girls and everything. How do you treat between the girl, all right, and the boy in terms of disciplining and everything? How does that work? Lushen.
Okay. Well, my daughter, she's just no problem. She's just a joy. We sit down together. She's just cool. She just does her thing. She's not hard work. Just totally different to my son. And he's just a typical boy, boisterous. When he's in the place, just his will is so strong, you can't even hold a thought together. And so in that aspect, I know. Put it this way, I think. Oh, it's quite a difficult question. Really. It's quite a difficult question. One thing I've noticed, I know, for example, there's a certain way that you can deal with my daughter, and all it takes is a look, just a simple look, and that's it. And she knows. I don't have to scream or holler, or shout, or sit her down somewhere. It's just a certain look, and that's it. With my son, that's never going to work in any shape or form. So I think there's the thinking about it, I think that's where a mother does come in. And don't get me wrong, mothers always come in, don't get me wrong, in certain areas, but this is where a mother is well needed also. And I think there's certain ways, because there's certain things which I've said to my or ways that I've carried on in discipline wise to my daughter, which, to be fair, because of being a man, it was a bit strong. It was a bit strong. That's where a woman would understand in aspects how to come in the right way for discipline. So I can understand how basically the balance could be in a case where if it comes to the final say, if your daughter is not really is acting up, and she's been disciplined and been told what to do by her mother, and it comes to a point, okay, well, it's not really sinking in, then the man can really step in and have the final say there. As a co-parenting father, a parent, dealing with my daughter has been a case of, just speaking to her authoritatively, as a man, as a father. Always, as well as I'm always thinking, because it's something which comes to me not too long ago, I'm thinking, okay, I realise that women are more likely to marry their dads, as in a character of their dad. And so that's helped me to really kind of rein in, for want of a better word, or be more conscious of how I discipline her. You catch a drift. Because, too much maybe hollering and shouting and this and that and blah, blah, and they'll get used to that, and that'll be somebody that they'll may find out when they're older to get hitched with. And so I'm just very cautious there. It's been a difficult question for me, I should say, because to be fair, I have been blessed with a daughter that's really given me trouble. So, she's really, really good.
Fantastic. Fantastic, thank you. What about you, Daniel? With your daughter?
Yeah, I mean, I can't comment on the difference because I only have a daughter, but like Lushen, I'm the same. I've been blessed with an amazing daughter. I've never had to discipline her because I've always looked, okay, what is it? The way I approach things, I'm like, okay, what is it within me that I need to clear? And when I clear it, then my communication will come from a more powerful place. So, there was actually, I mentioned this recently when we were talking that that most women look for love from some women look for love from their children. However, I realized I was doing that with my daughter. Once I saw that, I'm like, oh, that has taken away my power to communicate effectively with her. Once I cleared it, I was then able to come from a much more powerful place. My words could come from love, yeah, and they would be solid. I'll say, look, you know, this is my perspective. This is the way I look at things with this, your situation, yeah. And I'm coming from love in that place. But if I hadn't cleared that emotion, I'd be still stuck in that feeling. And I feel, you know what I'm going to talk on a little bit about later about letting go. That for me is the key, whether you're male or female. When you can let go of a part of the emotional trigger in that moment, then your words become more powerful, they become more loving, they become more connected. Whereas if you're stuck in the emotional charge, that's impossible. Yeah. And you're going to be pushing up against the wall. And this works with male or females as well, you know, daughters or sons. So for me, I've been very blessed. You know, my daughter, she just gets on with her stuff. It's very easy. It's like, you know, she'll come to me occasionally and we'll have a chat. But what also Lushen said, there was times where my reaction was quite strong. I wasn't conscious enough and I responded. And at that point, it really needed a woman's touch. It's like, yeah. And I spoke to my ex-wife after that and said, look, I upset Leia and I told her what happened. And like, yeah, you know, so we had a bit of a, you know, and it's cleared, but yeah.
Powerful,
it's powerful. It's really powerful, you guys sharing that part as well, you know. And I love the part you said, you know, girls would always look for a man that's similar to their dad, particularly if it's a good dad and they really love their dad in that role. And I think it's equally the same, but vice versa. Sometimes a man may be looking for a really good woman like their mom if they had a good relationship with their parent. But Lushen, thank you so much for sharing with us. But I want you to speak to some of the single fathers here. We're eating up the time for Daniel. So I want you to share out there if there's a single father out there at the moment starting this new journey of called parenting. Just a couple of tips. What can they do to have that relationship, that co-parenting to work smoothly?
I would say, I know it's difficult, and if there's any anger or animosity which is harbored, try to do as much of what you can possibly just to really diffuse that, you know, just really get rid of that, because you'll never be making decisions or from the right place or speaking from the right place, and it becomes about you and not about the children. I would say as well is not to, I know it's in our as men, it's in kind of our makeup to win, and you know, sometimes we have to just swallow it, sometimes just leave it. Just leave it. If you think you're basically having the mickey taken out of you, or they're taken, as men would say, I'm having my balls taken away, you know, just let that happen, you know, just for a quiet life, because it's just for the children. But no, I would say know when though to put the foot down, know when to be assertive and say no, you're taking it too far. I would say keep away from drugs. Keep away from drink and drugs. If you want to have a beer or two, have a beer or two. Anything more than that, don't bother, you know, because there's always a case where you could end up having to make a decision or having a phone call where you're not in the right state of mind. Keep well away from the drugs. I know we always will be needing escape, but the best thing to do is to maybe find your way at a gym, find somebody who you can speak to. Don't be afraid as well to speak to another man. I know men, you kind of bottle things up and keep everything within us. Find the right man that you can speak to, a right friend. I know sometimes you have a friend that you can speak to and they don't want to hear it. That's just as men are. It's, oh yeah, sort yourself out, keep whinging, blah, blah, blah. Find someone who you can really offload to. you know, don't be afraid of doing so. You're not going to look weak at all. It's actually a strength to be able to offload. And just make sure as well that you are offloading to the right person as well. Look for somebody who's not in a situation where they've got 6 kids, 6 months, with 6 different women. They're not really going to be able to advise you, right, are they? And that's what I'll really truly say in regards to in that area. Just really speak as much as possible as you can to someone who could really advise you. As well, someone that is older than you as well, a lot older than you. Someone that's had a family and children and everything else. An older man will always help. So you can see things in perspective, because our generation can be a bit warped in our thinking. I think that's what I can think off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you so much. That is a really fantastic points that you've just brought up. Just quickly share summarizing a few of them, because I think they're really, really important. And I think I love one of the points that you've said, you know, if you have any hurts, any anger, try to sort it out, try to get rid of it, that kind of thing. Speak to somebody they're a bit more older, a bit more mature, and possibly has gone through similar stuff, similar journey as you, to be able to speak to you, speak in your life, and be able to bring you back to your own self. And I think what you've just said is really a massive, important key. Don't go and take drugs. I mean, this is something we're not talking about because you're so stressed, you're so painful, you just want to numb the pain. But I think this is another father speaking to you fathers out there. Just bear that in mind. Thank you so much, Lushen. Thank you for being here. Now, my next guest that I'm so super, super, super excited, obviously, Daniel the King, okay, and he's going to talk to us about the art of letting go. And I think, Lushen has touched quite a lot of the stuff there that men hold on to, the pain, the anger, the frustration, the feeling confused, the feeling of getting lost. Where do you take all those things? And so my guest and my co-host is going to talk to you about how do you as men be able to let go this anger and frustration so you can have a great relationship with your children. Daniel, please tell us about your talk. You're welcome.
So literally the art of letting go. And it's really about, I mean, this is the thing that I talk about the most, whether it's in business, whether it's in parenting. True letting go is so powerful. It's completely transformational. And to understand what letting go is, really, we need to understand that we are carrying a huge amount of suppressed emotion within us. Every individual, whether it's man, woman, we're carrying these emotions, and we're conditioned to hold on to them because we're told things like, don't cry, don't get upset, don't do this, don't do this, people are to blame for your situation, etc., etc., etc. So rather than allowing these emotions to be released and to be let go of, we hold on to them. For men, it's anger, it's grief, it's guilt, it's shame. And the more we hold on, the more this rucksack of emotions literally builds up within our emotional body. And it's at that point where we start to see life through the lens of this emotion. So we start to see people, we start to see circumstances, and we start to see our children through the lens of anger, through the lens of shame, through the lens of guilt. And that's literally not allowing us to see situations clearly. We can't see people exactly as they are because we're looking at them through our mind, and our mind is created by the emotions we've suppressed, the unconscious emotions that are there hidden, and we interpret the world through those emotions. So when that happens, every situation we see, we're seeing through those lenses. So we're not seeing it as it is, and we're not seeing people as they are. And this is so important to understand. because when we understand this, then we're like, every situation I find myself in which I react negatively, there's something about that situation I haven't seen clearly. There's something about that person, my ex-wife or my child. And when we act emotionally, we can't then approach that situation in the best way possible. So we have to learn to let go of these emotions. Yeah. So the thing is, how do we do that? Yeah. And it's really the most simplest thing to do, but it's probably one of the hardest things to do. It's simple because you don't need to learn any tool. You don't need to learn any technique, really. You just need to sit with these feelings, because any feeling felt consciously will start to dissolve, and the energy of that feeling will start to die down. And I think one of the best ways I can explain this is when, let me think, what story should I say? Was literally when, probably about 6 years ago, when I woke up, and I think I've shared this story, and I had a nightmare, and I had experienced this intense, I was experiencing this intense fear. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning. And rather than avoid it, normally I would switch on the light, turn on the radio. I'd be like, I don't want to feel this. Yeah. But I decided to feel it. And it took me 2 hours of sitting with wave after wave of fear, completely consciously, until all of it died down. Now it would get really strong at some points, and then it would shift, and then it would die down. Then it would get even stronger, then it will die down. And after all that was done, I fall asleep, and I wake up 3 hours later. It's time to go to work. From that point on, I noticed the fear in every aspect of my life had gone down. Yeah, my fear making business decisions. I was running an IT company at that. My fear in public speaking, even my fear in speaking to my ex-wife, had gone down. So that's when I realized that the fear that I was carrying had impacted my ability to move through life. It had impacted my ability to communicate with people, impacted my ability to step up on stage and share my message or whatever it was. Yeah. And what most people and men are doing is they're holding on to these emotions, and they're creating disconnection. They're creating a lack of motivation. And by getting in touch with them and having the courage and strength to face them, then we can start to release those emotions and step into a new version of ourselves. Yeah. Now, Lushen, you made a really good point earlier on that don't take drugs, don't take alcohol. But the reason that people do take drugs and take alcohol is because they have these emotions that are really strong, really powerful, and they don't know what to do with them. They don't know how to process them. So rather than sitting with them, they avoid them. Okay. And the best way, and the more they're suppressed, the stronger the outside mechanism has to be, so that they get back to a state of balance. In a way, it's not balance, but they get back to the happy state, a feel-good state. Because when they just sit with their stuff and have suppressed the emotions, these emotions will want to come up. And if they don't know how to deal with them, they can't sit with them. Okay, I can't just sit here by myself. I need to switch on the TV. I need to go on a porn site. I need to, take some alcohol. I need to go out. I need to do something. Yeah, to avoid this, because they're just so painful. I don't know what to do with it, because we've been conditioned to hold on to them. Yeah. And this is what happens. But when we start letting go, all of a sudden we're free of this. And I had a friend of mine who, he rings me up once. I don't know if I've told you a story and he says, Daniel, I'm no longer an alcoholic. And I'm like, okay, why? And he'd been an alcoholic for 22 years. He had spent literally tens of thousands of pounds on some of the, you know, best sort of rehabilitation centers, and none of it had really worked, because at the end of the day, he had always reached out for a bottle to drink. And I said, okay, so what happened? And he said to me, well, I found out that my ex-wife started seeing someone, and even though, you know, they had separated for, and I think it was 6 months, a year at the time, he hadn't processed the emotions. And he said, look, I decided to sit down in my chair and just feel everything. And he said to me, I found out about 1 o'clock, had that phone call from my ex-wife. And I said, and the first thing I looked at a bottle of vodka, and he was going to take it, but he was like, no, I'm going to sit with it. And he sat with it. He said, I was in that chair for 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
And during this time, he experienced anger, shame, guilt, sadness, crying his eyes out, rage, all of those emotions. And he was like, I didn't move. I just sat in that chair, like, you know, and then after that 4.5 hours, and, you know, he just, like, you know, you can imagine, it was completely exhausted at that point. He said, I thought to myself, let me have a drink. And he had a drink. And that's when he realized he was no longer an alcoholic. And he said to me, and I said, why? And he said, because for the first time in my life, I didn't need another. I had cleared all of the emotional energy that had caused me to take more and more and more to distract myself from the emotions. But because I'd released them, those emotions were no longer there. That anger, that shame, that guilt, those really unpleasant emotions weren't there that would have normally caused him to take that drink. And he said he waited about 3 weeks to tell me this, because he didn't know. He said, like, you know, because I showed him about letting go, and he was like, this has changed my life completely. Just sitting, the simple act of sitting with his emotions for 4 hours. I mean, I can only imagine what he went through, because, you know, over that 4 hours of grief and sadness, but he sat with it, he like a warrior.
Yeah.
And after that, I knew he was telling the truth. When he said to me, I didn't need another for the first, I knew it was like, he's done the work. He's done the work. He sat with his stuff. He's cleared it. And he said, like, from that point on, you know, I don't need to drink. I don't need to drink like half a bottle or a bottle of whiskey or any of that. I don't, you know, and that was like 2 years ago. I know him now. And he's like, and the thing is, it doesn't require will at that point. You don't need to force yourself not to drink, because you've dealt with the emotion. You've cleared the emotions. You've let go. So I knew, I knew that was a huge shift.
He kind of faced his fear.
Yeah. He faced all of his fears around his emotions. And this is, you know, when you're in a parenting environment and you're with your child, and a lot of the listeners here won't be able to see their children because they would have stopped from doing so. That in itself is a gift, because it brings up the very emotions you need to process in order to create that connection. Because when you stop from seeing your child, if you truly get in touch with the emotion and don't avoid it, you'll see there's a tremendous amount of grief hidden in that, sadness about not seeing your child. There may be surface layer anger initially, but underneath that, there'll be a grief from that disconnection. And when you can get in touch to process the grief, all of a sudden the world around you will shift in response to your new emotional state of being. Yeah. And what that may mean is that you may suddenly receive a phone call from your ex saying, I've been thinking about this. Maybe you could start seeing your child again. But unless you deal with that emotional energy, the universe, the world is going to keep reflecting back at you that feeling of disconnection you feel, because grief is always the gateway emotion to connection and love. And as a man, we're told constantly, don't cry, don't get upset. So we never have an opportunity to process and clear our guilt. So that grief, that unprocessed grief, creates the barrier for us to connect with our child. And until you learn to process it and clear it from your system, no amount of external doings is going to help you truly connect with your child. Now, you may, the mother may stop you from seeing the child, your daughter, your son, and then you may have to go to courts in order to see them. But if you haven't done the inner emotional processing, clearing the grief, even when you do get to see them, there's still going to be that barrier, because the barrier, the connection happens at the emotional level. So in order to remove that barrier, you have to clear the grief, the anger, all of that. And that is incredibly important and powerful when you do that. And, and I believe, that any man that can clear these stuck emotions, even if they haven't seen their child for 5, 10, 20, 25 years, if they can get in touch deeply enough and clear it, they can reconnect with their child and start up a relationship again. Because it happens at the energetic level. Does that make sense?
Yes.
For the root.
That is powerful. What do you think, Lushen? That is what he's just said.
Sorry, kind of it's powerful because it got me thinking and trying to understand the mechanics and how it works, because it's something which I've heard of once, and once or twice, and it was I remember some guy said, embrace it. I remember one time the situation I was having. I was at the barber's and the guy said, and I was offloading a little bit to him, he said, embrace it. And it made sense, but I don't think I really went all the way through with it. And it's even something my son said the other day, he's only 6, and he said, face your fears. I'm like, where's he got that from? So in regards to what you're saying, that's why I said facing your fears, because it did, as you speak, as you explain, it just open up, it's kind of, because I see things from a spiritual perspective as well, from a very spiritual perspective, and from, I'll be straight, spiritual activity. And that's why I came with you're facing your fear. And I can hear what you're saying in regards to going out and drinking and smoking is a case where you're trying to, you see it as, well, it is numbing the pain, but therefore you haven't overcome the situation, as which is pretty obvious. You're just masking it, but they just sat there and didn't actually. That's it. Yeah, they sat there and they didn't succumb, or they did not succumb to it, and were not manipulated by what that feeling will cause you to do. They sat there in it, and therefore took the power away of what that actual emotion was doing. Therefore, it had no power. That's what I got from what you were saying. And then you said something about, you went on to say, then underneath that there's a root cause, and then dealing with the root. So I'll be straight, I'm coming from a Christian perspective. I'm come from a Christian background, and from spirituality, from demonic to entities and so on and so on. So I'm going to be straight. Part of what you were saying, I was thinking, okay, where is this going? But in a sense, I could kind of tie into my spiritual beliefs and experiences. And there's a case, there's kind of, there's something which is even in the Bible, and it says, submit to God, resist the devil, submit to God, and he will flee. So in that aspect, it's kind of resisting the devil, it's resisting that emotion, the effects of what that emotion is going to cause. Therefore, it has no power. So it's like, I can't do anything here. See you later. I'm gone. So it really did. I've never heard it put like the way you put it before.
Yeah.
But it really kind of blew me away.
Yeah. And effectively, it is submitting to God, to life, to exactly what you have to go through. You're like, okay, there's nothing I can do. I just need to sit with it and just allow the process to happen, to trust in this without resistance. And I'll give you an example. I had a client relatively recently, and he's from a different country, and his father was a very successful businessman. And every so often his dad would approach him and say, can you run one of my businesses from him? Now his passion, my client's passion, wasn't in what his father wanted him to do. My client's passion was IT and computers, and he would say no, and his dad would shout and scream at him. He would like have a go at him. And then also every so often he would get people approach him for money and ask him for money, and always he would give it out of guilt. So his dad would shout and scream at him and he would feel guilty, and then these guys would approach because he came from like a developing country. So I'm like, okay, it's guilt. Guilt is the core emotion that you need to look at, you need to face. So this is what we did. We got him to sit with the guilt, but in a way where he didn't blame himself. Because as soon as you blame yourself, then you've lost all your power to release it. Yes, it's impossible. So he sat with the guilt, and then we approached a new perspective, and then he was able to clear it. So he rings me up probably about 3 weeks after this, and he says, you wouldn't believe it. My dad came back to me again, and he asked me to run the company. But this time I said no. But when I said no, there was no feeling of guilt whatsoever. I just said no. And my dad's response was like, oh, okay. That was it. Then he got 2 of his friends come back to him and ask him for money. He said he felt into it, and he realized that by helping them, he was stopping them from helping themselves. They was stopping their opportunity to grow as people by giving them money. So again, he said no, and he felt no guilt, and they were like, okay.
Wow, that was absolutely fantastic.
It was a completely different experience. Once you process at the emotional level, everything around you begins to change. People change in response. Things become more effortless, become easier. It's pretty amazing, really.
It's not, am I right in saying it's not a knee-jerk reaction? You're not acting from a knee-jerk reaction anymore, are you? You're processing it and seeing it for what it is.
Yeah, exactly. You realize that there's always a space between the event and your reaction to the event. And the more you get in touch with the present moment, your state of being, the bigger that space becomes. Yeah. And that's the choices within the space. So the choice comes when the space becomes bigger, and you're like, yeah, I can choose to let go. Yeah.
It's powerful.
It's fantastic. It's very powerful, incredibly powerful. Thank you so much for sharing, my guest speaker, Lushen. Thank you so much, and as well as my co-host, Daniel. I mean, guys out there, if you've learned everything today, please let us know. Send us a message on, drop us a message. And thank you so much for your support. And I just want to reinforce, I mean, what you said, it was so powerful, because sometimes we don't want to deal with our emotions. We don't want to deal with that pain, our hurts, our guilts, our letdown. We don't. We want to run away from it. And just simply what my co-host Daniel said, he said, by just sitting there, just taking that time out and sit there, let all that anger, all those emotions, all those things that's coming up, and look at them head on and see how you can deal with them. And from there, you will get the answer that you need. We want to say It's been a powerful, powerful talks today. Thank you so much, Lushen, for being here with us to share your journey, share your story. Thank you. We really appreciate you. And Daniel, of course, my king. Thank you so much. You guys are kings. To all the kings out there, the fathers out there, we truly appreciate you. We admire you. And as a woman coming from me, I truly do look at you as the kings. And I love what my guest host here said, Lushen, he says, that struggle about that, the man authority, you still have that. I know the whole thing, the system has changed, upside down, where now the woman kind of thinks we've got it all together. But really, we still need you guys in our life. And I know definitely I still do, because you are king. So I want to encourage you, all the kings out there, all the single fathers out there, hold on tight and don't forget your crown. Wear your crown and smile and hold the children's hand, because trust me, you're doing amazing work and your children's love you. Thank you so much. God bless you. We look forward to seeing you not next week, Saturday from now onwards, and with some amazing, awesome guest speakers and some amazing topics as well. We are looking for speakers, so if you're any fathers out there, or even men as well, we're not just limiting to single fathers or fathers, come and just send me a DM, a message, and say, go to our website, Let's Change Your Life with Margaret Foley. Fill our form out there that you want to be a speaker, and we look forward to hearing from you. To my guest, Lushen, I know you're graphic design, and I've been pushing this man out there because he got some great talents. If somebody wants to work with you, talk with you, how can they reach out to you?
Okay, you can send me an email on create, that's CR8 at Throne Room Designs, with a Z, not an S, .co.uk. I have a website at www.throneroomdesigns, that's with a Z, not an S, .co.uk. And just hit me up through those social media handles, and yeah, you can take a look at my work also, and I'll be more than willing to work along with you.
Fantastic, thank you. And I must say, the background that you're seeing, he's done that in most of our flyers, so do reach out to him as well. And sometimes he probably has said something in the talk show today that you may just need that extra support. Thank you so much. What about you, Daniel? How can our guest, our fathers out there, reach out to you?
Great speech, great sharing, and absolutely loved it, enjoyed it. Margaret, as always, amazing host. Just really enjoyed today's show, and I hope the people that are watching, all of you, have enjoyed it as much. And if you'd like to reach me, clearthepath.co.uk, and email address is danield@clearthepath.co.uk.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you to all our viewers out there. Thank you. And we look forward seeing you, speaking to you soon. Thank you. Have an amazing time. Thank you, guys.